Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. My name is VirtualNunchucks. Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to my review of Star Wars Squadrons. Originally, I wasn't even going to review this game. I was just going to buy it, play it with my friends and family, and, well, here we are anyway. Hope you guys enjoy. Uh, let's talk about it. You're going to fly as the Imperials, or you're going to fly as the New Republic. You can't, you actually fly for both. It's a story about both factions, and it revolves around the Project Starhawk. Project Starhawk is a project by the New Republic, a weapon to try to stop the Imperial Navy from expanding their reach. And the Imperials, of course, are trying to stop you from completing this project. And, of course, get back to their rightful place, quote unquote, as rulers of the galaxy. Now, you might say, no, wait a minute, that makes the New Republic sound like the bad guys. No, actually, there you can tell who the bad guys are and who aren't. It's very cut and dry, even though they try to sell you on the idea that maybe they're not, maybe they are. But it's very cut and dry on who the bad guys are, and the Imperials are still the bad guys. But what is interesting is that you will see a lot of things on both sides that you're like, that's interesting. There are different political leanings and beliefs on the imperial side that don't always ring true to what we've always known. And then on the same token, the New Republic has some gamblers and some scoundrels and all kinds of people who you kind of go, I wonder if you're as altruistic as you sound. So, it makes for interesting situations. So the story itself, I will say, is passable. Okay, it's passable. It's really, really good in spots. And there are times where I was like, yes, please, do that one more time. You know, mission just like that, or a story point just like that, please. And then there are other times, most of the time, unfortunately, I felt that it just didn't hit home like it should. Not because the story itself is bad, because it's not. Where it falls short and why it is not as impactful as I think it should be is because, unfortunately, when you talk to your squad mates or when story beats do happen, dialogue choices do happen, you're just like a person who's just standing there listening. There are no dialogue choices. There are no real ways to interact with your squad mates except for before and after missions, and really all you do is click on a person and you listen to them talk. There's no voice acting for your character. There's none of that. There's none of that. So you have moments, several minutes, in fact, where you just sit and you listen. It's kind of like watching a movie, and then they throw you in a cockpit and say, "Here, go do this." It kind of falls flat. There are set pieces that are amazing, but when they throw you in the cockpit, that's when this game changes. Because then there's comm chatter to try to flesh out the characters even more for you, and the comm chatter actually matters, and you actually get to participate on what's going on screen. And let's talk about that. Flying in this game is just so cool. There's no other way to put it. Being able to fly the various ships for both factions is incredible. The campaign takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete. It basically functions as a tutorial on how to control your ship, what the power systems do, how the targeting wheel works, how the communications wheel works, or whatever. So it does its job there. It wraps a nice little story around it with some characters from lore like Wedge Antilles and Harrison Dula from Rebels, but it's basically a massive tutorial for 6 to 8 hours, and you really need that because to just jump into a multiplayer without knowing how your ship works and how different things work, you'd be out of luck. But when they do throw you in the cockpit and let you fly and let you experience what it's like, I gotta say it's amazing. I played this entire game in VR, in case you didn't notice why all the camera shake is there. I played the entire campaign for 8 hours in VR. There are a couple of issues with PSVR that I'm going to talk about. First off, it can be a little blurry with certain details. And that's not because I didn't adjust it or anything like that. That's just simply because it's a lower res rig than, say, for example, an Oculus Rift. But I got to play with what I have, right? My brother played it with Oculus Rift or whatever VR he has with his PC, and he said that he had none of those problems, but I did. So I have to tell you my experience. Um, you can purchase different things for your cockpit, like holograms that you can have, like of Darth Vader, or the Death Star or something. And those holograms, when you're playing in 2D on your screen, not in VR, show up crystal clear, perfect, look amazing. But those little details don't show up in PSVR. They're just big blurs, or sometimes they don't even show up at all, which is sad because the rest of the game in VR looks amazing. The debris, the starfighters, the environments themselves are gorgeous to look at in VR. And I actually recommend that you play this game if you can in VR, because in VR you have the option to turn your head, be able to see where your enemies are going, especially in the Republic's cockpits where they have the glass canopies, where you can actually turn your head, follow your target with your eyes, and compensate with a control scheme, or with your controller or your joystick or however you're flying, and track them that way. And that's really, really cool. It adds a level of immersion that's not there. If you want to take off points for the blurry in VR, that's fine. But I found it most enjoyable in VR than not, because I've flown it both ways. The amount of customization for your fighter is crazy. Like I've already said, you can do things like bobbleheads and holograms for your cockpit, and little, like, little dangly things, kind of like reminiscent of dice that you can hang from your mirror, kind of stuff. There's different things that you can do there as well. But you can choose your own paint job. You can choose different loadouts for your ship, like anything from different engines to weapons that are different and behave differently. And each customization option that you pick, or each loadout option that you pick, like engines or whatever, affects your ship in different ways. For example, one engine may give you a great top speed but slower acceleration. One engine may give you more maneuverability but less top speed. Certain hull, the hull of your ship might be customizable to make you more of a tank, but you sacrifice a lot of maneuverability for that, but you take a lot more hits before you die. Another hull will keep you off the radar, but it's maybe more susceptible to lasers or missiles than the standard hull. There's just so many different options to choose from to make your ship your own, to fit your play style. There's rapid fire cannons. There's some ships have you can drop turrets. It's kind of crazy. Speaking of ships, there are several. There's fighter class, interceptor class, bomber class, and then there's the support ships. Support ships for this game are the U-Wings, like in Rogue One, or the TIE Reaper, like Kylo Ren flies. That's kind of what it reminds me of in Force Awakens, the one he landed with. The support ships are unique because they can both be defensive and offensive. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you're flying into fleet battles in multiplayer, if you're a support ship, you have the option of maybe being completely defensive. Instead of having weapons of any kind other than maybe an ion cannon or something, you can shoot shields at your allies to give them more health. You can shoot repair kits at them. And then, of course, you can have ion cannons to disable targets for your teammates. Or you can go on the offensive and drop turrets, for example, around your capital ships to keep them from taking as much damage. So you definitely have to pick and choose how you want to fly. It makes for a very interesting game to play. It's very customizable to the style that you want to play, the type of role you want to fill. I'll give an example of how deep this customization goes. I was playing this weekend with my brother, and we got to laughing because we did the math on some of these fighters and some of these attachments. And one of the attachments is a reinforced hull for your ship, so you take more hit points. And I'm flying in a bomber, which already takes a bunch of hits anyway with the default hull. So I said, I tell you what, let me add this hull, this reinforced hull. I'm going to put on the rotary cannon, which is like a minigun underneath my ship, that deals a whole lot of fire downrange, but it lessens your DPS per shot just by a little bit. But there's enough to fire to make up for it. So I said, let me put that on there. Let me put the reinforced hull on there. Let me put some multi-lock missiles on here and see what happens. So we get in this thing and we fly in a dogfight. And he and I are talking, and he's covering me, because I'm a slow bomber and he's on an interceptor and whatever. He's trying to cover me. But this X-wing started flying straight at me because he has shields and I don't. Okay, that's one of the trade-offs for being Empire. So he's flying straight at me, and he's not moving. And I'm thinking, well, I have reinforced hulls, so let's see what happens. So he starts shooting at me. I get a missile lock. I fire a missile. I start firing my rotary cannon at him, and I start taking his shields out. Well, he flies straight into me. I mean, doesn't move, doesn't do it. He flies straight into me. He blows up. I keep going. I look over at my health, and I'm damaged, obviously, but I still can fly. The wingman was right behind him. He flew straight into me. Same thing. He blows up. And by the time he blows up, he dies, I have 2 health left. Now, I'm going to die eventually, obviously, but I survived a collision with 2 starfighters before I died, which was kind of crazy. I got credit for 2 kills. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. It's very dangerous, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes you bounce off the shields anyway, because if they've reinforced their shields before they come at you, then you're in trouble. You're just going to bounce off and explode. But it was something that was just totally random, totally funny, and it worked. So there's that. The other thing, I mean, there's just so many things that you can do, and what makes it really fun is playing with friends. If you have 4 friends that you know and you guys can communicate well and you can coordinate your battles, you can easily feel like top aces for each faction. It's incredible the amount that teamwork helps in this game. That's what it's about. You can play with randoms, but if you don't have a way to communicate with randoms, or people not willing to communicate with you, it can be very, very difficult to win a game as a team. But if you are willing to at least use the communication wheel with one another and talk to one another that way, you can still pull it out. But I do definitely recommend playing with friends instead of just randoms, because it does help considerably. And if you guys are well balanced, like for example, if you have a team with maybe some fighters and maybe a bomber, an interceptor, and a support ship, you guys can just rule the day. If you're balanced, you can easily mop up your team. If you're not balanced, you may not win, or you might. Depends on how well you can fly. You can customize your controllers. Any button that you want can be customized. You can remap your buttons to anywhere you want. If you want to play with hands-on throttle and stick on either platform, any platform, you can. And again, customize your layouts the way you want. There are plenty of accessibility options, from simplistic controls to colorblind filters to subtitle options to make them bigger, smaller, show up different in colors, whatever you need them to do. There's text-to-speech options, which is incredibly awesome. There are narration options for those that need it. There are just all kinds of options to make this game accessible to a bunch of people, which is a great thing. I'm glad EA finally did that. I applaud that. More and more developers are finally doing that, and I appreciate that. If you are into flight games at all, or space combat, or you know, anything like that, I recommend you try this game out. I recommend it on VR, but you don't have to play it on VR. It's not required. I play with a controller. My brother plays with a flight stick, so it works out. He plays on PC. I play on PS4. Crossplay is works perfectly great. I didn't have to wait for a match at all. Well, I say at all. Most I've ever had to wait for a match is like 35 seconds before being dropped into a match. This game is just incredible. My final verdict for this game, having no microtransactions, having problems with the story, some problems with PSVR, my final verdict for this game is going to be a 7.5. The story is passable. It does have its moments, but it basically serves as a big tutorial. There are some graphical hiccups there, here and there with PSVR, but it's nothing that breaks the experience. The biggest problem I have was with the story and the lack of immersion with the story. But as far as being able to just fly and coordinate, it's great. There's so many options, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave me a like on the video, leave me a comment, don't forget to subscribe, and follow me on my social media, Twitter, @VNunchucks, twitch.tv/VirtualNunchucks, and Facebook.com/VirtualNunchucks. You guys have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.